everyone may go in the fort.
Thank you for coming to our presentation about moving our school outdoors. My name is Tori Kassabaum, and I'm the Director of School Affairs at City Garden School. As you saw from the video, outdoor learning is fun and beautiful and so rich. And really, the children are learning things that we could have never planned for because we are learning fully outdoors. It's been such a gift. The next part of this presentation is going to be a PowerPoint presentation, and it's just kind of to keep me on track and make sure that I share the important things that I want to share with you all. City Garden School began almost 8 years ago as a Waldorf-inspired nature and arts-based school in Columbia, Missouri. We began our school in just one room, and we had multi-aged children within that room, and we have since moved to a 3-classroom model where we have a first grade classroom, a second grade classroom, and then a combined 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade classroom. Prior to this fall, we were renting space indoors at a church in downtown Columbia, and we used a local park actually owned by the University of Missouri for recess and outdoor learning and play. This park was lovely, and it had a little creek running through it and many trees, but since we were at this park that's actually owned by the university, we were not allowed to climb the trees or move the big rocks or really even dig in the dirt or play in the creek, and so it was kind of a lot of micromanaging the children's outdoor play, which we really didn't resonate with, and so it's been a big shift to be at a space where now we don't have those regulations. Every Friday, we did go to a different natural area around Columbia. So, for example, we would go to Rockbridge State Park, and the whole school would have an outdoor day where we would just play and connect with the natural world. And so we did get time in where the children could actually just free play and connect with the natural world, but not at our everyday recess time. Here are some pictures of our indoor classrooms. So you can see we really kind of bring the natural world in. So we have lots of natural wood finished furniture, beautiful artwork that ties nature into the curriculum. We use paints and crayons and pencils that are made with natural pigments. And then here are some pictures from our outdoor days. So you can see the children are doing kind of their own work on these days. They would often make like fairy homes or structures where they could play. They would find animals. They would pick up leaves and beautiful rocks. And then we also would go once a month to our urban farm area here in Columbia. And so this picture on the right is picking tomatoes at the urban farm. And so we really still considered ourselves a nature-based school because we do have those outdoor Fridays, and then we also would bring nature in within the curriculum, within art, story, and with craft too. And so these are just some examples of how we would bring in nature to our classroom. But you can see like the children are dissecting flowers to learn about the parts of a flower in one of these pictures. We did a lesson on wild edibles where we learned how to identify them, and then we walked through the city and found them, but we didn't actually eat them when we were in the city because we thought that was a little bit unsanitary. So we did actually come to my yard a while after doing this lesson, and we found some of these, so we got to taste them. Here's another example. We brought some flowers and some beautiful changing leaves into the classroom on a cold fall day, and the children observed the flowers or the leaf, and they drew a really detailed picture of it, and then they wrote poems about it. So this poem is so nice and beautiful, and it says, "Full of small detail, beautiful in the autumn, dewdrops on their leaves," and that was written by a 3rd grader. So now we're going to get to kind of how we decided to shift to an outdoor location. And prior to this fall, we were really interested actually in moving our school to a place where we had more green space, and we would have loved to have more lessons outdoors. In the past, we just couldn't find space. We looked all around, looked at purchasing land, which we didn't quite have the finances to do. We looked at renting land. And then this year, this place kind of fell into our laps, and we're so grateful for that. But the reason we really pushed this year was because in March we started doing full-on virtual learning because of COVID. And while we saw the need for it then, we also saw that the children just really weren't connecting with their peers and with their teachers and with the curriculum as well as they do in person. And so we, as a staff, and especially the teachers, decided this is really what we want to do. We want to move outdoors and host school outside. And our teachers were also nervous, of course, about being indoors with, 30 children. And so our teachers, they're the heart of the school. They really are the ones who are running it each day. And so we did what our teachers needed to feel safe. And so really we talked about this off and on kind of since March. And then just about a month before school, we just committed, okay, we're finding a place. We're going to make this happen. Even in just a few weeks, we can do it. And so one of our teachers actually saw an event on Facebook at this Camp Takamina location, and it was a yard sale, and it was to raise money for their organization that runs the camp. And she went out and spoke with the director of this organization, and the director was so excited that children might be running the forest and learning in this space. And so, after that, we called, set up a meeting, and it was like immediately clear that both of us really wanted this to work. And so we made it happen. And it's just about 20 minutes north of our downtown location. So we thought it was kind of the perfect balance of really being out of the city and safe in the woods, and also not too far from town. So the transition to becoming an outdoor school was actually pretty easy from an organizational standpoint, and that's compared to all the manual labor that it took to actually move our school outside, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But the staff, the teachers, and I made a rough plan about what each day would look like, how we would shift curriculum to be taught in the woods, what additional things we might need to make this really work as a full-time elementary school. And then we presented that plan to our board with some pictures, of course, of the beautiful outdoor space. And they were so excited. They approved the plan and were just right there with us to make it happen. And then we pitched it to our parents and then to the larger Columbia community. These are the pictures that I sent to our board when I presented the idea of an outdoor school. So you can see, how could you say no? It's so beautiful. And so what was the community response? The response was just so much excitement. The first couple emails I got back after sending out this decision to our current families, like someone said they were crying, they were so excited. Someone said they were so thankful that their child was going to be safe during this time. Many people were excited their children were going to be in community and also stay safe with COVID. We also shared the news with our quite large email list and on our Facebook, and the response was similar. So many people were excited. Many people wanted tours of the space or wanted to talk on the phone about what school would look like outdoors. And really, it was such a successful effort because our enrollment doubled. And so we went from having about 20 students to having almost 40 students. So now we can talk a little bit about the physical move to the space. When we got to camp and looked around, it was kind of clear that there was space set up for like more like storytelling. And so we just decided, well, that space is set up. We'll just utilize that space, clean it up a bit, and make it the classrooms. And so to do that, we cleared a lot of brush. We cut down some dead trees that were hanging over spaces where the children would be sitting, and we continue to use that for firewood now. We had to build some desks, do some trail maintenance. We had to fix some bridges and just like sweep up and clean up around the space. Thankfully, our community is very supportive of helping with that kind of work. So we had some work days, and the families came out with their children and really helped create this outdoor classroom. We also have a tuition tier system that requires volunteer hours. And so each month, most of our families actually take a tuition discount and then work 10 hours a month for our school. And so this worked out really well because they could start those hours in the summer and come out and work on the outdoor classrooms, and then it counts for their some of their tuition payments. And so in just a month, actually it was like three and a half weeks, our classrooms were ready. Here's some pictures of the community work days. So you can see it's all ages. We had babies and toddlers and kids and parents and grandparents coming, and aunts and uncles. And it was really a wonderful start to this year, especially as we gained so many new families. So we all got to know each other through these work days. And so now I'm going to talk just a little bit about the school days outside and kind of how we planned for that. So we knew how to play outdoors with children and how to lead some lessons outside and really allow the children to just get to know nature. But we had never taught all of the 4 subjects in a woodland setting in a pandemic. So there were just lots of things to figure out. So some of the questions we asked were, where would we store the children's materials? How would we keep them dry? What would the children sit on? It would be okay to sit on the ground in warm months, but not for the entire chilly fall. How could we keep them from getting distracted as so many animals and bugs are running through? How would we continue to build community whilst keeping pretty distanced? How do we ensure that they're prepared for 6 to 9 hours outdoors, even in the cold? How do we create structure in a somewhat unstructured environment? Where would the funding come from to purchase all the needed materials to add to our outdoor classrooms? So these are just a few of the things we figured out, and I think it's worth sharing because we spent kind of a lot of time researching some of this. So for those 4 weeks, myself and our teachers worked well over 40 hours to figure out all these things. And also, we were not naive and know that continuously the teachers are figuring out logistics as we go. So, like it starts like today, it's like hailing outside. So we figure out what to do in the hail. And so our teachers are really adaptable at this point to figure out what is needed each day. We applied for some funding from the CARES Act, and we did receive about $2,500. And that was really a blessing because it's what we used to buy some of the materials that we're going to talk about. So we bought these big wagons pictured here, and that's actually where we store each child's materials, and each child has their own plastic box. And something we've thought about a lot with just this year, specifically outdoor learning in a pandemic, is that we've used a lot of plastic. And so that's kind of unfortunate, but it's felt like to keep their items contained to just them, and then also to keep things dry, we kind of had to do it. And also in our short time frame, we couldn't get as creative as maybe we could have if we do this again next year. We built some sensory corners in the classroom so that if someone is feeling distracted, they can be sent to a side of the classroom where there's some sand and some gems hidden. And so instead of just sitting and not listening to the lesson because they're distracted, they can go kind of get back in their bodies and ground and then come back and actually be present. We did edit some of our games and lessons so that we weren't doing so much like clapping with each other for a rhythmic math lesson. Instead, we're clapping on our own bodies or on our desks. And so we've built in distance to our games. Another big part of this was that we really needed to educate families about what their children needed to come to school with. So of course, like a lot of food for snacks and for lunch, and then layers to stay warm, and also like a full water bottle or two in the hot days. It's just really a lot of communication with families. And then another thing that really helped was that we created really simple but consistent rhythms each day, so that even though we were outside in this big woodland space, the children knew what was coming next, so they could really settle in and concentrate on their work. So, how is it going? Our teachers and families feel safe, and that is just the biggest thing for us. If our staff and our children are safe, we can make it work. The children do not want to leave to go home at the end of the day. I was there the other day and I saw a child who was in our aftercare program that goes until 5:30. His mother came at 4:30, and he was so upset that he was picked up early that he sat outside of the car for 10 minutes and would not get in the car. And I'm sure that mother was frustrated, but as a director of the school, I thought, oh my goodness, what a beautiful thing to see. This child wants to stay outside in the woods instead of going home to be indoors. We found that curriculum is being taught in an even more integrated way. And so, like in the 3rd and 4th grade, for example, there is a human being and animal block of curriculum. And of course, the children are actually seeing the animals they're learning about. And so while they're hearing a lesson and doing a detailed drawing of this animal, then they go search for it. Or they made like a graph of what kinds of bugs have crawled into their classroom while they're learning. So the curriculum is just so integrated because we are outdoors. It might be, we're kind of assessing this. We might be teaching at a slower rate. And I think a lot of that can be contributed to the fact that this is our first year doing it fully outdoors. And so we're really like learning some things as we go. We're actually having our first parent-teacher conferences as I'm making this presentation right now. And so we're really honest with families and open in communicating with them what's being covered and what maybe was missed last spring when we were doing virtual learning, and what we're working to make up, and then what they're learning because they're outside all the time. Like they're learning a different set of skills as well. They built a fire pit. They keep the fire going. They're learning to identify the things around them. There's just so much happening that's not written into our curriculum, but we are very clear that that is a kind of learning. Okay, here's some pictures of the children learning outdoors. So we've got them making a fire pit. We have them doing, there's a little map lesson down there. And then we bring watercolors outdoors. They've learned to make tea from the plants growing around us. We've got like a funny hat made at recess there. And then, yeah, so it's going so well, and it's getting really cold. Today, right now in Columbia, it's 32 degrees and ice raining. And so we noticed that some of our families have not been outdoors for prolonged periods of time in the fall and winter. So we really need to continue to educate about layers and clothing and what type of materials their children are dressed in, and what things are needed to stay warm. We're also realizing we really need a warm space to get some reprieve from the temperatures, especially when it's also wet. And so right now there's this large lodge structure at Camp Takamina, but it's not quite large enough to have all the children in there safely with COVID. Even masked, it feels very contained, and they're all in like one big room. So it's also not very conducive to learning. And it's also not that warm. So we're just thinking there's like actual structures needed. And then what does academic learning look like when it's rainy and we're sharing this indoor space and the children's hands are cold? Yes. So that is one of the pitfalls, is that cold temperature that we can't quite figure out what to do with without funding. And then there's another couple pitfalls. As a private school, we're aware that we're not accessible to all families, and we do offer ample scholarship and have these work trade opportunities, but we're still not accessible to all families. And then now that we're 20 minutes away from town, we can see that we may be even less accessible. We've thought about getting a bus or carpooling, but those things are difficult financially and also with COVID. And then we might not be set up financially and just like with the materials we have to make outdoor learning happen in this deep Missouri winter. And that's something we're kind of on the cusp of either deciding to go inside for a few weeks in winter, maybe 6 weeks, or to try to tough it out and make it through the Missouri winter and know that that is a lesson for the children in itself. I would like to end our presentation with some quotes from our parents about how outdoor learning is going and how it's affected their children. So I'm going to read just a few of these because I think it's really valuable to hear parent input about such a big shift in our school. My 8-year-old has been thriving in her outdoor school. She can't wait to go to school each morning. She is also learning so much. In addition to the usual reading, writing, and arithmetic, she is learning about edible plants, how to care for the earth, how to build a safe fire pit. Her confidence, perseverance, and problem skills are growing each day, too. Outdoor school for my 2nd grader has meant rosy cheeks and muddy pants when he returns home, with glowing tales of fascinating mushroom and bone finds on nature hikes. He talks about the best recesses ever and takes pride in his diverse and growing collection of the coolest sticks. He revels in campfires, balancing logs, and the reading he's developing with his teacher and his classmates. Overall, he's tremendously engaged, invested, and attuned to the whole environment of the outdoor school. My daughter has grown so much in her time at outdoor school. Her experiences here have taught her deep attention and respect for the natural world. I love going on hikes with her and listening to her identify birds, lizards, amphibians, and plants. She finds wild plantain and knows that it can be used to soothe stings. And she knows that wild chamomile can be made into tea that tastes like pineapple. The wild and open spaces that she explores with her class have given her the freedom to stretch her imagination, make connections, and develop her practical skills in ways that she could only discover in an outdoor setting. Working and playing outside in all kinds of weather has taught her strength, adaptability, and resilience, and the experiences and challenges she shares with her teachers and friends have helped her cultivate sweet and sustaining friendships. Almost makes me teary to read those. If you would like to share questions with us or comments or information or stories, please reach out to my email written here. I would love to connect and collaborate with you all and hopefully make outdoor learning something that happens for many schools in many different settings. Thanks so much.